mountain, wildflowers bind the ground.
Welcome to the Pride Perspectives radio show. This is Rob Darrow. My pronouns are he, him, and his. Our Pride Perspectives radio show is here on KSQD every other Sunday from 5 to 6. Find all the recordings and updates on the Santa Cruz Pride website, santacruzpride.org, and on the KSQD website as well. I'm here tonight with my co-host, Cece. How's it going, Cece?
Good. Great, Rob. It's good to see you. Good to be here. And my name is Cece Pinero, and my pronouns are she, her. Our show is guided by the following beliefs. We believe that Santa Cruz County is thriving partly because of the contributions of LGBTQ plus people, and LGBTQ plus people in Santa Cruz County are thriving because of the broader Santa Cruz County. We believe in the words of Jewish poet Emma Lazarus that none of us are free until all of us are free.
On this show, you will hear us refer to queer history and LGBTQ plus history. For us, these terms are interchangeable and refer to people who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, anywhere on the gender identity spectrum, or who they are attracted to. All are welcome to be part of this radio show. So here we are, almost done with the first month of 2026. Cece, already.
Wow.
2026 is flying by.
Yeah, can you believe it?
What have you been doing?
Oh, geez, what have I been doing? Well, actually, I went to Kauai.
Oh.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
And we did this bee tour to visit the honeybees because bees are very, very important part of our, ecological system and the world and
bees
climate.
Like B-E-E-S.
B-E-Es,
okay,
yes.
just checking.
Yeah, honeybees. And we put on beekeeper outfits and harvested the honey and then got to take some of it home. But the reason I bring that up, we did a bunch of different things, but that was the place that we saw some other lesbians. There were 3 other lesbians there, and we were all like nodding. We could tell, and we were joking, and we were getting to know each other. It was really great to see family there on that little small island. So the island of Kauai is only as big as the city of Santa Cruz. So
right.
It was great to see family out there, and that was a really, fun time.
Yeah, that says a lot. I don't know about you, but anywhere I go and I see a rainbow flag flying or things like that, it just gives me comfort, right?
Yeah.
No matter where you are.
It was so fun.
And I'll just point out downtown Santa Cruz has those little stickers on their signs that are still one of the many remnants of the 50th anniversary of Santa Cruz Pride that the business has put down, and thanks to the Downtown Association for doing that. It says all are welcome, and the symbols are there, and I know that's true in a lot of our schools as well.
Yeah.
We like having our county being a safe space for LGBTQ plus
Absolutely.
people in lots of different ways. So did you go to any of the protests or the MLK March?
I wasn't here for the anti-ICE protest, but when I was away, I listened to the last show that you did that I missed. And, of course, my favorite part of the show was that you had the recordings of Bayard Rustin.
Yeah, Bayard Rustin.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that he said, don't just march, vote.
Yeah.
And that's really stuck with me. But I did go to the MLK March, of course.
Right.
I did do
that.
that.
I was there, too.
That was exciting.
I didn't see you in person, but it was still great, huh?
That's right. And, of course, I saw, the Elaine Johnson was there leading it, and she was on that last show I was just talking about. So that was that was a great show. That was really awesome.
And that's it. That's the great part of being in Santa Cruz County. People show up, and one of our guests will talk a little bit later about showing up at events and how they put on an important event as well. So just as a quick recap for our last show, you said you listened to it from a distance, or you listened to the recording?
I listened to it. Yeah, I think I listened to it right when I got back, but I listened to the recording.
Oh, great. Yeah, well, you can share your insights. I'll just point out that we had Tyler Williamson, who's the mayor of Monterey, the first out African-American gay man elected to city council and then became the mayor. He talked about housing as being an important equalizer for all people, and how he helped start Monterey Peninsula Pride. That theme of housing carried over with the conversation with Elaine Johnson, and I hadn't really thought about the importance of housing, but she also, because Elaine's the executive director of the Housing Santa Cruz County organization and president of the NAACP, emphasized that housing for all people in Santa Cruz County. She shared her coming out story, which was fascinating. I don't know if you remember, but around age 14, she came out to her mom, and her mom says, you got to go talk to your aunt. So she goes to talk to her aunt. Now, this is in Brooklyn, New York. And she talks to her aunt, who says, I'm not really your aunt. I'm your grandmother's partner.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of fascinating that, everybody comes out in their own special way and that sort of thing. And then Elaine actually shared about the challenges of being black in Santa Cruz, where, less than 10% of the population is black. And so that's certainly
and how important that is with housing.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And
right.
Maybe not always in Santa Cruz, but certainly in the 70s when I was in Ohio, I worked at this candle factory, and I worked with this woman that went to rent a house.
Yeah.
And they rented it to her, and they took her money. And then when she walked up with her African-American husband, they said, I'm sorry, we're not renting to you. Get out. And then we had a lot of I worked with her, a lot of conversation with her, and she said, those same people will not rent to the gays.
Yeah.
And that they could still back out in the 70s. And it was just, I was appalled, and I thought it was a crime, and well, couldn't we do something about it? But that is, it's historical that people have been discriminated against in housing.
Yeah. In our lifetimes.
Yeah. In our
all
lifetimes.
These things have happened to a variety of different cultural groups, and our LGBTQ plus group as well. And that's why we're so thankful for the state and county we live in.
Absolutely.
And, so that's important as well. Anything else? Anything else to catch up on?
That just reminds me of, I was one of those people that left. I grew up here, went to Santa Cruz High, like Bryce, and who you'll hear from Bryce a little later. And I went and traveled back and forth across country 4 times, and I was like, oh, I won't even say the bad words you're not allowed to say on the radio, but I couldn't believe what an amazing place this was, and how everybody else was not as friendly or generous to LGBTQ plus people and people of difference. And I'm like, I come running back home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's happened to lots of people, I think, with Santa Cruz as well. So we're happy to live here. We're happy to have some awesome guests tonight. Tonight our show is focused on coming out and how parents respond. As most of us know, and Cece, we can certainly talk about this between us here, that, coming out is a common experience for most queer people. Most people first come out to themselves, then they come out to their friends and family. Then generally as they come out to one's family can be a bit challenging. And if you're a parent, then it can be challenging from that perspective, or knowing how to react in a loving and accepting way. And that's certainly a challenge. We've heard those stories from lots of different younger people who are in middle school or high school. Anyway, we're excited tonight to have some of those conversations. Any other thoughts from you about coming out before we introduce our guests?
Oh, well, of course, I think about my own coming out story in a little bit of a way. Just briefly, when I told my mom that I was gay, because I had a girlfriend in 7th grade, and she said, the gay men saved my life, and they are my friends, because she at 16 years old, she went to the San Francisco Ballet School, and all the ballet dancers were gay men, and she said they were the best looking, they were the best friends, and they protected me and took care of me, and I won't forget that. So so it just takes one experience of somebody to have a good experience with an LGBTQ plus person, and then when, I think it made all the difference.
Yeah. For me, as I've said before, I came out later in life, and so my parents were gone, but having conversations with my younger siblings, some of them talked about the conversations they had with my parents about maybe being gay and how they would react. And I figured my parents would have been just fine with it. But it's interesting with different siblings how some of them were happy about that and some were not, didn't think that was okay. But my parents were very accepting people. I remember at one point I was at this party where somebody tried to talk to me about what was it like when I came out to my parents. And I just led them along, and I said, I never told him that I was not out younger. I just thought I'd lead them along because, the way they were asking me those questions, I thought, you're not really that curious. But,
right.
I look at everything's an opportunity to educate other people. So
that's
not as
right.
much across Santa Cruz.
That's right.
So
education.
Yeah. So you're going to introduce our guests?
Sure. We're here. We're going to have a conversation with Kevin and Bryce Grossman. And Welcome, Kevin and Bryce. So glad to have you on our show this evening. We've had you both on our show before, but for different reasons. But it would still be good to remind everyone who you are. So, Bryce, we'll start with you. So, Bryce, can you start by introducing yourself, what schools you've attended?
Hello, I'm Bryce Grossman. My pronouns are they, them. And I'm pretty sure this is my 4th time being on the K-Squid radio. And the schools that I've attended are, my first elementary was Westlake Elementary School. My whole family, like the community there, we grew up with, so that school has a special place in my heart. Then for middle school, I went to Mission Hill, which, let's just say it wasn't very nice either. It wasn't so nice versus like Westlake, but I got through it. And now, I'm starting Santa Cruz High as a freshman, and I've already been through 1 semester.
And how do you like Santa Cruz High so far?
I'm really enjoying it a lot. I really like the people there and the teachers, and just like, I guess, this because the school works differently than a lot of the other schools in our district with an accelerated schedule and also open campus during lunch and stuff. And I really like the people, and I've met so much new friends, and yeah, I'm just really enjoying it.
Well, when I went to Santa Cruz High during lunchtime, we would go over to the food bin. Is the food bin still there? Yes?
Yeah, it's, yeah.
So that's what we used to do. Where do you guys go at lunchtime?
I haven't been to the food bin in a while, but usually a lot of people just go to the 2 gas stations that are like across a couple blocks away. But a lot of people go all the way downtown to like the bakery or something like that. But I've never done that. It's because it's just too far of a walk for me and my friends. We don't want to do that.
Yeah, check out the food bin. Anyway, so do you think that Mission Hill wasn't as inclusive or friendly or whatever you felt? It didn't resonate with you? Do you think it was because it's the middle school factor of, like it's a certain age group? Like society doesn't know what to do with middle school people. That's why we made a middle school, to separate them from society. So do you think it has to do with that age group more? And because those same people possibly have gone to Santa Cruz High, and now you're having a different experience. You think it's like the age, like they haven't figured themselves out, and so they're just messed up or something?
Well, I think it's just kind of the concept of the middle school age gap, because I bet no one really has a good time in middle school. It's like the in-between period, as you were saying, and it's also just like, no offense, but Mission Hill is just not the greatest school. However, it's not all bad. There's definitely some great teachers, like my favorite teacher of all time, Miss Kletzer's there, and also a lot of other teachers that I've enjoyed talking to over the years. But I guess just if you're in like the our district, like I guess talking like with all the kids, Mission Hill is like ranked the worst out of all the kids. Like,
well, there's only 2 middle schools.
Yeah,
in the
like
county,
no,
right?
because B40 kids always make fun of Mission Hillers, and then Mission Hillers always are crying because we're not B40 kids.
Well, I could speak to that because I went to Branson 40 Junior High, and we never thought Mission Hill was very good at that time, even.
Yeah,
I imagine it there. And having been a middle school teacher, I want to say that it is a fascinating time period for people as they grow and change, for sure. But I'm curious, Bryce, if there are some suggestions based on your experience at Mission Hill that would have made it more positive for you.
I think it's just kind of how the school works. Is one of the nicknames by all the other kids in the district is like Prison Hill.
Really? It's always been called that.
Yeah. Like, I think it's like I said, it's not all the teachers. Most of them were great, and then also, I think part of it was also the kids. Like, the middle school social like food chain could be pretty rough.
Yeah. A couple kids make it kind of rough for lots of people, huh?
Yeah, there's definitely I'm not gonna like name names or name drop at all.
Oh, no,
but there's definitely some kids who I guess like I think middle school everyone kind of feels like squeezed together versus like, but Santa Cruz High it's really nice because everyone kind of minds their business versus like middle school when like you're like you're stuck with everyone. But yeah, it's just middle school. I guess I don't really know how to explain it, but just the way Mission Hill does their schooling is a bit not fun. They're just very, like, I guess, protective. Like I said, the nickname is Prison Hill.
Yeah.
But the reason why Branson 40 is so much better that a lot of kids have told you is that it just feels more like you can breathe. Like, it doesn't feel as claustrophobic as Mission Hill.
That's really interesting. But I did hear you say your favorite teacher of all times was the teacher at Mission Hill. So the teacher, so that says something about it. So there was a great teacher there, but the rest of it was...
Well, I'm curious what you would like your other teachers to have done, or what they could have done that would have made you feel more included or more positive.
I think, one of the biggest things I have for teachers is what really gets students engaged and students to like you and to like the class is when you take learning, but you make it fun. Not kind of like, like the after school special kind of way that's like very cheesy, but just like, for example, I had a health teacher last semester. And he was really good at this. He was just really good with our age group, where he would have random rants and like have these little quirks, I guess, that would make everyone stay engaged. But whenever he would go on some like dumb rant about like he would talk about aliens a lot, he would always like connect it back so seamlessly to health. And like so everyone loves the teacher. His name's Mr. Bentley. Like everyone loves him. Like kids from past semesters with him literally go back to his class and say hi just like every day. Like I remember I was there for the second semester, and kids from the first semester would literally like stop by his classroom every single day. So basically, my biggest thing is to know your age group that you're getting into.
Right.
Like if you want to be a high school teacher, if you want to be a middle school teacher, elementary. Well, elementary is the easiest, but, like, for middle school, you really just gotta know what you're getting into. And you gotta make sure, like, just be friendly with the students. Like, don't be afraid to be silly. And then if you just engage with them, like, in a way that they will enjoy, you will get good feedback.
And I'm just curious, at Mission Hill, did you experience anything in health or in history where people talked about LGBTQ plus health or LGBTQ plus history? Do you remember any conversations about different genders or things like that in a health class, or anything about LGBTQ plus history in your history class?
Well, in middle school, we don't have, like, a separate class for health. I was talking about the one I did last semester for high school.
Right.
However, in science, at the end of every year in your science class, you do have a health unit.
Right.
And I would say that the health unit always is great when it comes to LGBTQ representation.
Great.
Like they always talk about, especially, like, there's always a whole day on diversity, which I think is really good. Okay. And then also when it comes to sexual health, they do talk a lot about how to be safe as an LGBTQ person.
Great.
Like, it's not just like male and female sexual stuff.
Right.
And then also I would say that in history there wasn't like really that much. Like I think there was like barely anything. I just think that it would be really interesting if history teachers really like had like units where they talk about LGBTQ offense, like the Stonewall,
right.
And stuff like that. So yeah, I think that health does a really good job, but I would love to see more LGBTQ representation in a history class.
And there, you don't remember lessons in like an English class where they talked about an LGBTQ plus author or story or gender-related stories that were assigned to you or anything like that, huh?
There probably was a couple, but they weren't like memorable enough to say like, oh, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have to have like a whole unit that's like weeks of focusing on this. I think that would be great, but I don't know of how many kids could take it.
Yeah.
But I think that it would be really interesting if history classes or English classes just take time to really focus on LGBTQ stories.
Yeah, we try to really encourage our teachers to do something, especially in May, because it's Harvey Milk's birthday. So I appreciate your candor with all of that, and I'm sure they heard a lot.
There used to be a poster that said "Not all history is straight," and it had James Baldwin and talked about as far as like authors and he's certainly somebody that we hope that you will certainly probably study in high school, maybe not in junior high, but those posters would be great to be up on the walls in the history classes or the English classes.
We're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back and talk to Kevin after the break. Back in 2021, as we were all, quote, coming out of the COVID pandemic, people at the Santa Cruz County Office of Education invited some students who were seniors in high school to share their coming out stories and their advice to parents about how to react or to respond if their child comes out. During the break, you're going to hear from these Santa Cruz County students, Tashi, Brooke, and Reyes, about what it was like coming out for them. Those students have gone on and done some great things, which I'll talk about later. You'll hear that during the break. You're listening to the Pride Perspectives radio show here on KSQD 90.7, 89.7 FM, and KSQT 89.7 Prunedale, serving the counties of Santa Cruz and Monterey counties. Enjoy listening to Reyes, Tashi, and Brooke during this break.
Hi, my name is Brooklyn, and I'm a lesbian, and I go by she, her.
Hello, my name is Reyes. I go by he, they pronouns. I am a two-spirited individual who lives in the Santa Cruz Mountains.
Hi, my name is Tashi, and I use they, them pronouns.
I came out, I want to say 5 different times. The first and third one are probably the most important. The first one was I was in 6th grade, and it was the night of the Pulse nightclub shooting. And I remember hugging my mom and crying to her and telling her, "Mom, I'm gay." And, at that moment, my mom was like, we're hugging each other, crying, and we're talking about how we're worried for, our friends and family safety, like our queer friends and family and that sort of thing. And then the third time, both my mom and I were coming home after San Francisco Pride, and some argument happened in the car. I don't even remember what it was about. I remember we were almost home, and I told her, "Mom, I think I'm trans." And she was like, "Okay, do you have what pronouns do you want to go by? And, do you have a name in mind?" And at that moment, I didn't really know. And, she helped me come up with the name. My name now, which is Reyes. And, from that moment, her and my dad continued trying their hardest to use the proper pronouns for me.
I came out in 7th grade, and for me, coming out began with changing my pronouns rather than telling people I had a new label attached to me. To be honest, I still don't really like to use gender labels very much, although if people ask, I would say I'm gender fluid or gender queer. When I came out for the first time, it was to tell my family that I was going to start using all pronouns, I was comfortable using they or he or she. And then it was another few months, maybe half a year, before I told them that I wanted they, them pronouns specifically. I told my mom about my pronouns first. As far as I remember, I think she maybe asked me a couple questions about kind of just what the process had been like for me. It wasn't very specific. We talked about it more later. In that first moment, it was more just like, okay, this is what you mean, just some clarifying questions, and then some hugs. And I think she said that she told me she loved me. And for my dad, I think understanding they, them pronouns was a longer process, but he always made it really clear that he supported me and that he loved me, even before I think he totally understood how the whole pronoun thing worked.
For me, coming out was, I've never really believed in the process of coming out. I never felt like I had to confess anything. I just kind of wanted to be myself and not have it be a big deal. So my parents were sitting on the deck one day, and I went outside and I said, "Wow, I'm so excited for homecoming." This is my freshman year of high school. And they said, "Oh yeah, do you have a date?" And I said, "Yeah, her name is so-and-so." And then they were kind of surprised, but I think they asked me if this was my coming out, and then I explained that I didn't really believe in coming out and that was just me. And it really went over pretty well. They did question.
So once again, that was Tashi, Reyes, and Brooke talking about their coming out experiences, students from different schools in Santa Cruz County back in 2021. Welcome back to the Pride Perspectives radio show. Again, my name is Rob Darrow. I'm one of the co-hosts here on our show, and we've got Kevin and Bryce Grossman talking about their coming out story. And we didn't get a chance to meet Kevin yet. So Kevin, it's great to have you here. Could you just start a little bit about introducing yourself, where you grew up, and what you spend your time doing now here in Santa Cruz?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks for having us on the show, too. So Kevin Grossman, my pronouns are he, him, and I grew up in California, in the Central Valley, actually, a town called Visalia, just south of Fresno. Mm-hmm. and then went away to San Jose State, and then have been in Santa Cruz now for almost 30 years. Met my wife on It's Beach a long time ago, way before we had the kids.
So you must have had a dog.
We didn't, though.
Oh.
No, we didn't have a dog then. Shortly after we were together, we did, and we have a dog now too. But no, not when we met, though.
Okay, because It's Beach is the famous dog
I
beach.
know it is, and actually it's kind of not there anymore because the tides have changed so dramatically. It's just not there anymore. Anyway, long story short, so we've been here for almost 30 years in Santa Cruz and love this community. And I currently work for a software company called Surveil that helps companies monitor candidate and employee experience feedback at companies big and small across industries. Worked with a lot of companies over the years, and I run the research program that helps companies understand the impact on their business and their brand. So that's what I do as my day job. I'm also on the local school board. I'm one of the trustees for Santa Cruz City Schools, and have been very, very happy to be in this role now for the past 3 years. And it's been an amazing leadership development opportunity, and we really have a great district in Santa Cruz.
What caused you to run for school board?
So it was actually, speaking of Westlake, our fond memories of Westlake. So Clyde Curley used to be the principal at Westlake for over 10 years. And 3 years ago, it was like the end of the school year, he called me, and he just asked me straight out, would you ever be interested in running for a trustee? They were struggling to get potential nominees to run for the open seats. There were 3 at the time, and one in my area. And so we talked about it, and I said, well, I'd love to talk to current and past board members just to kind of get a feel of what that would be like. Because my wife and I have always been really involved in education, but never at that vantage point.
Right.
And after talking to a lot of folks, I said, I put my hat in the ring and did run unopposed, so I was appointed for this particular term.
Right.
Do plan on running again because I love the work that we do. And just as a quick aside, I love what Bryce shared. I do. I just want to give a quick shout out to Mission Hill because it is a fine middle school, and I have to give kudos to Derek Kendall, who's the principal there, and all the great work that he's done. But it's also an awkward time for all of us at that time, kids. Puberty, that pesky thing called puberty.
Well, and Mission Hill has a wrestling team, and there is studies, and not all middle schools have them. And there's a study that says boys who participate in middle school in wrestling are better, well organized and adept at social skills when they go to high school.
I did not know that, actually. No, I played sports all throughout grade school, junior high, and high school, but not wrestling.
That study is because no one touches middle school kids, and they don't want to be touched.
Sure.
So wrestling is a hands-on sport, and it really made a difference. You can look up that study.
Cece knows that because you used to be on the school board, right?
Yes, I used to be on the Santa Cruz City School
You
Board.
did, that's right.
That's probably when I studied it. So back in the olden days.
That's what we talked about.
I think it's interesting for any of us. I went through all the Santa Cruz City schools and thought the schools I went to were the best schools. I don't know if I had a negative experience, if I would think that other school might be better, but regardless, let's move on to our other topics here.
Absolutely.
So, Kevin, I'm glad that you and Bryce are able to come on and talk a little bit about what it was like when they came out. And so maybe you'd like to start that conversation. Is that something you and your wife thought might happen at some point? Did you think, I think Bryce might be coming out at some point? Or what was the conversation between you and your wife before Bryce came out? And then share a little bit about what came out, and then Bryce, you can join in.
It really wasn't dramatic. It really wasn't. In fact, when I think back, I mean, Bryce, when Bryce was very little and loved to dress up all the time, but in female gender dresses and perform and do a lot of very, much more outgoing than I think her big sibling Beatrice, at the time at least. And it was something that we didn't talk about it, not in a good or bad way. It just wasn't anything that we talked about at that time, at that age. But then there was one conversation, actually it was with my wife, with Amy, that came up first between Bryce and Amy, and Bryce just shared, this is what I am, how I identify now, and how I feel, and then Amy and I talked about it, and it was my first thought, to be perfectly honest, was I'm going to have a hard time saying they them, not because I didn't want to say they them. But because I'm so ingrained in gender, that I was more worried about that with them than the fact that they were identified as non-binary and queer. The thing with my wife and I is we want our children to be safe, happy, healthy, and thrive who they are and become who they are and never look back. And so it wasn't a problem between my wife and I talking about that, or even talking about it with Bryce. Again, I was just more concerned about boffing it, which I did multiple times in the beginning, and Bryce always would nicely, sometimes not so nicely, correct us, right? But it was just something that this is who Bryce is, period. And And so we talked about it as a family. We talked about Amy and I talked about it as parents. There are concerns about how the society is going to view them, how others are going to view them that don't feel the same. But we just want them to be who they are, period.
Great. Let's go back to that in a minute. Bryce, can you share a little bit about when you did come out to your parents and what you remember from that?
I remember that I think I was in 4th grade. And my sister actually just came out, I think, to my mom. Like, they had a conversation earlier that day about how she felt like she was bisexual. And then me and my mom, we like to watch shows in the evenings. It's kind of like been our thing for a while. And we were just sitting there, and then my mom turns to me and she's like, hey, so your sister told me this. Do you feel anything like that too? I just want to know as your parent. And so I just said, like, oh yeah, I identify as something called non-binary, and my mom had her computer, and I remember us looking it up, and we were talking about it and stuff. And then, yeah, that was when I came out, but I did say to her that I have been feeling like this since 3rd grade. I remember very vividly in 3rd grade when I kind of first got my hands on the internet for the most part, and also was in the height of COVID, so there was a lot of I had a lot new paths to explore, and I found out I already knew about being gay, but I didn't know about the whole everything to do with the LGBTQ community. So I researched non-binary and I researched transgender and stuff like that because I was very intrigued. And just when I came across the term non-binary, it really resonated with me. I might have been, I was young and I was in 3rd grade, but ever since then, it's just been part of who I am. And I remember when I first really talked about it was I used to do this thing after school in elementary called Kids in Nature. And I don't know for sure if it's still going on, but I think it was a great program. It was really fun. And I remember we would go in a circle, and for the first time ever, our leader at the time, she asked, everyone say your name and your pronouns. And this was the first time I've ever been asked,
What grade was that?
3rd grade.
3rd grade.
This was the first time, when you're doing, an introduction, it was, the first day of Kids in Nature, I think, that someone would be say your name and pronouns. So I just decided, you know what, I'll just say it, even though I've never mentioned it to anyone. And I said, and then I had a couple friends, at the time who, we're not close anymore, but at the time we were really close. And I remember she turned to me and after everyone was done, she whipped her head around and she was like, "Why do you tell me?" Not mad, but more just like this is such a big piece of who you are. Why did you tell me? And I'm like, I don't know, I just never brought it up.
So that was the first time you said they them.
Yeah, and it was
out loud, huh?
Yeah, and it was really sweet because her and then my other friend, we kept going around, and she's very I would say outgoing still to this day. But basically, she just kept saying, remember, Bryce's pronouns are they, them, okay? To, all the other kids in our group.
Oh, nice.
And also at school, she did that, too.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that was the first time I really said it out loud, and I guess my friends knew about it, and also at school, but I never brought it up to my parents. I wouldn't say that's because I was scared. It's just I never felt the need to. I didn't really care at the time. And that's why it felt so easy when my mom just asked me, because I didn't even need to, like, work up the courage to come out. She was the one who asked me to come out of the closet, and I just said, yeah, sure, this is who I am, and I hope you understand that. And she, I knew my parents would be chill with it because they're very, like, accepting people, kind of like how you were talking about your parents.
Mm-hmm. How did you know that about your parents? How did you know that they'd be accepting?
Well, besides
what would they do that caused you to feel okay sharing who you are?
Well, I think that they've talked about gay people before. Like, I don't know if I think I might have coined the term from them. I don't really remember that well.
Yeah.
But they've talked about, like, and my mom, she's done Kid Power for such a long time. If you don't know who that is, it's like a great program that teaches kids safety skills. Mm-hmm. And she has a bunch of, ever since, like, can remember, they had LGBTQ, like, lessons and stuff.
Components,
like,
right.
Yeah. And I remember, like, she would, like, I would hear her talk about it on her, like, Zoom meetings, and, like, she would be making, like, posters for it. So, like, I already knew that, like, they were chill with it, especially because, like, I remember when we were little, they would also take us to the Pride Parade sometimes.
Oh.
But the thing, when we were really little, they just told us it was the Rainbow Parade. They didn't. I don't think it's because they were scared to tell us. I think it's just because they just didn't want to explain it all at the time. But yeah, they would still take us, like, later, even, like, when I understood what gay was.
Yeah.
So yeah, I knew that they would be fine with it. I just never, like, that's why I never felt the need to bring it up.
Wow, great.
That's
Kevin.
a really good point for parents that are out there listening. Bring your young children to the Gay Pride Parade.
Yeah, I was going to ask Kevin, what caused you and Amy to decide to do that?
Just because we love our community, and we love the diversity and the inclusion of our community. All the things that have unfortunately had a really horrific backlash in the past few years. I think that we've always been involved. We've gone to many. We didn't go to this latest MLK march, but we've been to many marches over the years, and the No Kings March last fall, and the Pride Parade, all that, just because we love our community. We love one of the things that my kids kind of know about, but I've been writing my own parenting blog for a long time, for over 20 years, and one of the things early on, I've always been an advocate for sexual assault and harassment prevention. I was sexually molested as a 12-year-old by my stepfather, and I've just been an advocate for a long time. I was on the city commission for the prevention of violence against women for many years. And so but just when it came to, like, other marginalized groups, LGBTQ and immigrant families, and just this world that we're trying to still survive in right now in our own country that is going backwards. But it's just something that we've always felt very, very passionately about. And we've embraced it all because we love our community. We love Santa Cruz. We love and the state that we live in. And and I have very fond memories of where I grew up, but it's definitely a little bit different in the Central Valley than it is in Santa Cruz, California. Although I think that there's a lot of things have changed, though, too, actually, even in our own state. But that's why. I mean, it's just something. So it was one of those things to where I think even Amy and I probably had conversations early on, regardless if our kids are gay or straight or whatever that is, it doesn't matter.
It's all good, huh?
It's all good. So
what advice would you have to parents if their child comes out and says, I'm non-binary, I'm gay, I'm lesbian, or transgender, or whatever?
Depending on where they sit personally and their own personal beliefs. I mean, listen to your children. Try to take a step back. If you're somebody who feels you viscerally react in a negative way at first, maybe it's part of your religion, maybe is just try to listen first, understand where they're coming from, and try to have a conversation. And for parents that may struggle with it at first, because we didn't, so I can't necessarily speak to that, but I know many, many stories of those who have, is just try to listen to your child and try to understand it and give it some space, give it some loving space, actually. And I think that's because those that react negatively out of the gate and respond and don't want to, and are mean to their children. We don't want you to be gay. And again, I haven't experienced that. I mean, I grew up in a very much more conservative household, where it was talked about that gay was bad, right? But I never thought that. I had friends that were gay. I had friends that, and I just never thought that way in my own family. So, but I think that is just take a beat and listen and have a conversation. Listen to your child, where they're coming from and why, and try to find. No matter how far apart you are, you always got to try to find that space in the middle where you can still come together and have an shared understanding to each other. I mean, I think that's really, really important. You may never agree with how they feel, but that's your child, though. And you've got to try to have a compassion and understanding of
and believe
who they
them.
are. And believe them.
And
who
believe
they
them.
are.
Whatever age they are.
Believe
for
them.
sure.
Whatever
age they are.
young people are
we become
not always
who we,
believed.
We become who we are. We are who we are. It's not something that you don't. It's not a switch that you flip.
Right. Do you have a final thought on that, Bryce?
Some advice as the child that I would give is, number one, do your research, especially if you're unsure. Like I know a lot of people, of course you know what being gay is, but then some people might not even know the term non-binary. And or maybe transgender even is still confusing to them. So, like I said earlier during my coming out story, I looked it up with my mom, and I showed her, and I researched it with her at that time. So if I were you, either do it with your kid or on your own time, just research the LGBTQ community in general. Research the different terms and stuff. And, read articles, read stories about other people. I think it would really help. And then also, another piece of advice that I'll give, well, I guess not really advice, but my understanding is, if you truly did love your child, you wouldn't hate them for being for liking the same sex.
Right.
I understand that some people could have problems with it or be like, oh, it's just a phase, blah, blah, blah. But if you truly loved your kid, then you would just brush it off and say, you're still my flesh and blood. You're still my
Your family.
Family, yeah.
Yeah, the other thing for people to know is there's some great resources we have across Santa Cruz County. Your child's teacher, the principals, the school counselors. We have our diversity center, our Safe Schools project, a transgender group out there, lots of opportunities, and PFLAG. So just to say that out to parents.
And just real quick about the school libraries.
School libraries.
I mean, I think that is, at least I know specifically in middle school and high school, libraries, they have dedicated sections, for certain times of the year, whether it's African American
History
Month, which is February, Harvey Milk Day coming up later on in the year. But there's sections and featuring James Baldwin, which is an amazing author. And also, at the time of when he lived, and what was going on in the United States with the early civil rights era, and I mean, anyway, there's the schools do a good job, I think, of highlighting the subject matter around LGBTQ in their own libraries as well, for the students and for the parents too.
Yeah.
There's a reading list.
I do agree heavily. I remember. Whenever I would go to the public library or even my middle school library or my elementary, I would always find books. There's always sections, and then also just find books, just, being there and being able to read them with LGBTQ characters in them.
Right. Yeah, our school libraries across Santa Cruz City schools are especially robust, and I know the same for Power Valley Unified School District. So we have another guest that we're going to bring on here, Rachel Morales Warne. Rachel, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are y'all doing?
Great. So great to have you here. Could you start a little bit by just introducing yourself, where you grew up, and what your family was like growing up, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, sure. And my child is one you heard in the YouTube video in the break, Reyes.
Right on.
I grew up actually in San Jose, in and around, and I spent my, rebellious years in San Francisco. I come from a very large Mexican indigenous family, so all this stuff that it sounds like you were lucky enough not to experience, my experience and my kids' experience, just coming from a very conservative, not migrants. Borders came on our family. We weren't crossing any borders. So it was kind of interesting. I have incredible parents who were open, and they were the open your arms to anybody and do because you can kind of family. So it was a bit of a mixed bag, but I was an activist in the 80s for the AIDS epidemic in San Francisco. And I moved here to Santa Cruz up in the San Lorenzo Valley about 24 years ago, and I've raised my kids here up in San Lorenzo Valley.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks.
Sure.
Thanks so much, Rachel. I'm Cece Pinero. I'm here with Rob as my co-host, and I have a question for you. When did you sense that your children may be part of the LGBTQ plus community, and then what kind of conversations did you and your wife have about this?
Me and my partner.
You and your partner.
Let's see. We suspected early on, probably. In middle school. Everything's in middle school and discussed in the car. But early middle school, we kind of knew something was going on. We didn't know what was going on. We were like, let Reyes go ahead and guide us to where he's going to be. We just kind of kept our ears open and kind of just, your feelers out. We have a lot of chosen family that are queer and a lot of regular biological family that are queer as well. So my kids were always exposed to a lot of different people and environments. And then if you heard the video, my son came out multiple times. It's funny that kind of hasn't come up. I don't think kids or humans in general come out just once. Like when he came out the first time that was really important, it was at the Pulse shooting. That night he was scared and he came out and we talked about it. And then he came out again after Pride Parade, but he came out first as lesbian and then non-binary and then trans two-spirit. So, it's kind of a journey. We actually spoke at the award ceremony before COVID, the Queer
Youth Leadership Awards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we spoke as the family. Our whole family got up because you come out every day. You don't just come out once or twice. You kind of come out, if you're going to be out and be representative and show who you are and who you can be to other people, you kind of come out every day. So it's been an interesting journey. It's been a long journey with our son, and it's not always easy. He had a very difficult time in school and coming out, and he was very out, and he was very vocal, and he was very, very much an activist, not just here in Santa Cruz County, but on a state and a national level. So it was hard. It was trying, but we kind of took it as it came.
Could you share a little bit about what Reyes is doing now and what they did after high school and what they're doing now?
I encourage my kids to leave the area. You can always come back home, right? So he is actually in his final semesters for marine biology up in Oregon. And he's doing amazing. He was able to leave the area and not have the transitioning person that he was while he was in Santa Cruz County to this is who I am as a young man and go to college, and he's kind of doing that. Still kind of bumpy. There's been times it's been a little bumpy, but he's doing amazing things still, and I'm super proud of him.
Great.
So can I just ask backtrack a little bit?
Sure.
How or what did you communicate to other family members, like grandparents or siblings? Did Reyes participate in that or come out with the other, or did you talk about that with your parents, for example?
A little bit of everything. Reyes came out to his sister first, and then he came out to us, and we let him choose how he wanted it told. We're very close with my parents, and we're come from a very large Mexican indigenous family, so not having Nana on your side felt a little too heavy for him.
Yeah.
So he asked me to come out for him, and that wasn't even that easy. It wasn't just like me going, Hey, Mom, guess what? It took me probably 6 different tries, and I finally did it. And we both cried, and everything was fine. I'm lucky that my parents were it's still my grandson. I love them no matter what. That doesn't change. I just have to get used to the new pronouns. I have to get used to the new name. Those sort of things. My parents have been amazing, and in the process over the years, I have a nibbling that came out and is trans as well. So, once you show what's capable and what, have the strength to stand up, others will follow, which is kind of a beautiful thing. And then extended families. My parents went out and told their siblings and the other families, and if you're not on board, then you're not on the bus sort of atmosphere. I'm lucky enough that we've had that and are surrounded by that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Can you tell me what you've learned? Is there something you would like to tell everybody about what you've learned about being a parent of someone who's part of the LGBTQ plus community?
You can Google that. It is not your kid or your friend or your family's responsibility to tell you or to bring you up to date. Sure, you can ask questions, but especially when they're young in middle school, I ask 60 million questions, and that's the last thing anybody who just came out wants to deal with. So do the research, join the groups. You talked about groups. I'm part of the Trans Families organization here in Santa Cruz. I joined that to step out and to help. I got involved in other organizations, not just locally, but beyond, to get myself in the know. Because, sure, I know some, but everything changes so quickly and it expands. And, my trans roommate in college is definitely not what a trans individual is now. Everything changes and grows and evolves. So do the homework. Don't just depend on somebody to educate you. You need to go. And also, as someone on the other side of the education, be okay to share that education with other people who are going through that, other parents. Be there to help and go, oh, I remember that. And, this is what I got from it, and this is how I was able to deal with it and be able to stay better connected with my child.
Kevin, I see you nodding. You want to add to that?
No, I loved the perspective of just educating yourself, getting involved in other local groups. I mean, I'm very grateful that Bryce has kept Mom and Dad very educated, actually, of who they are and where they and how they feel and how they identify. And I think that's and I love hearing your story too. I think you touched on something that has been a work in progress for us too, of talking about extended family members and getting. And I think there was a little bit of an in between time when we weren't. Even Bryce, I don't think was super comfortable sharing non-binary with some of other immediate family. But now we're pretty much that's who Bryce is. That's who we are, and I think that for the most part, my parents, I wish they were still alive because I would love for them to see both of my kids and how they're thriving now. They were both really little when both my parents passed away, so I miss that. Even though they did come from more of a conservative background, I think they would have been more likely to embrace who we all are as a family as they did then. So I just loved hearing her story too of what she shared. Yeah,
it seems one of the common themes, which I know happens for all of us, is learning the pronouns, remembering the pronouns, remembering the new names, and being respectful of all of that. And I am, remembering that when Senator Bill Monning had a transgender person that worked for him, he had a really hard time, and it was a public person, and of course we'd all boo him when he wasn't doing it right, but it's a process for everybody, whether you're in the public eye, whether you're a public speaker. Public speaking is one of the biggest fears for people, so it doesn't matter who you are. Everyone's doing the best they can and learning the pronouns, and it's part of the education, certainly for me, for all of us, and that's what I've heard from most of the parents is learning, doing the homework, and like Rachel said, and figuring out how to, basically it's like, they say God is in the pause. So whether you believe God is the ocean or nature or great outdoors, whatever it is, that if you pause for a moment before you blurt out, you can remember, oh yeah, the pronouns, or oh yeah, this person's name. I know that's how it's been for me in my journey with different friends and people.
Sure.
along the way.
Rachel, what final advice would you have for parents whose kids come out to them?
Love them. Nothing's changed, really. You still love them. They're your kids. They're just telling you who they are. And let them have their agency and know that they're telling you their truth. It may not be your truth. It's their truth. And you need to respect that and also follow their lead on what that looks like for them. It's never been a parent's journey. It's your kid's journey to who they become as an adult. So if you want to stay a part of the journey, you really need to give them their agency and their safety. Safety is super important.
Yep.
Especially sometimes your kids aren't going to realize what might not be safe, and you do. So not to shield them from what's going on, but at least to have the discussion of, this might not be safe. This is how we can stay safe. And how do you want to move forward? Because they're going to need those skills later. And my other advice is you're going to mess up on the pronouns. You're going to mess up on the name.
Yep.
You're just going to do it. Just don't make a big deal out of it. Correct yourself and move on.
Yep.
I even make mistakes now. It's been a long time. Every once in a while, I was just on a panel earlier this week, and a trans individual said, I even mess up my own pronouns every once in a while. It happens. Your tongue just trips.
Oh, great.
So just be open. Just be open, because that's right, especially right now. That's what we need.
Yep,
Everyone just needs to be open and caring for each other in these moments.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Rachel and Kevin and Bryce. I hope we can continue this conversation in the future. Thanks for being here as part of our show today. It's hard to believe it's almost the end of our show. Cece, you got a final quote for us tonight?
I do have a final quote. This is by Larry Mitchell. There is more to be learned from wearing a dress for a day than there is from wearing a suit for a lifetime. If the culture we've been raised in is sexist in many of its attitudes, it stands to reason that most of us share those attitudes to some extent, consciously or unconsciously. Whether we are gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, chances are we've absorbed some of the culture's belief that women are inferior. We may, for example, make or enjoy jokes that disparage women's bodies or aging process. Whether we're men or women, such degenerating humor is an act of self-hate and self-rejection. We may be intolerant of women's continuing struggle for liberation, characterizing feminist perspectives as too angry, too strident, or even hysterical. When we reject the legitimacy of any group's claim to liberation and dignity, we reject ourselves. Let's look at the rejection within us and what we call female and what we call male. Let's acknowledge the qualities within us that have traditionally been assigned to one gender or the other. Let's bring our intolerance of women and of men into the open and let it go. Today, I let go of any prejudice against men, women, trans people, non-binary people, or twin spirit individuals.
Good advice. So for our upcoming events, tonight there is a We Must Mourn to Resist vigil at 7 o'clock by the Clock Tower in downtown Santa Cruz for anyone who would like to grieve together about some of the issues that are happening in Minneapolis. In February, we have the Elevate Business event, which you can find more about on the Santa Cruz Pride website, which will be February 26th. We want to thank you again for listening to our Pride Perspectives radio show, Conversations and Stories, to celebrate the LGBTQ plus culture and history across Santa Cruz and Monterey counties. Our next show will have some business people talking about why it's important to have inclusive business practices in our city and our county. Thanks for being here tonight.